Good morning. How was your night? I hope you slept well. And I trust you didn't forget our conversation from yesterday. I want you to live life. I don't want you to be worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or what will happen next year or whether you've achieved enough today. Live all that, live all that. Live today. Live today first. I mean, if you're a Christian, you would have read where Jesus said that shouldn't worry about tomorrow. Why worry about tomorrow? See the birds of the field, God clothes them. But how much more you? How much more you should now be worrying about tomorrow? Just wanted to check in on you. I hope you're not worrying so much. Today is a very peculiar day because I have a very interesting topic in mind. I want to talk about society, man, and God. The the synergy of those three elements or those three concepts. But today, first of all, I want to start with God or gods or the higher power or the concept that is above man, that man likes to think about, that he looks up to, he wants to become, he's trying to ascend towards. Earlier this morning, I was thinking about society, that we haven't really changed. We haven't really changed. I mean, since old, we like to think of ourselves as very advanced, like we've achieved so much. We've built all this, we've invented all this technology for ourselves. We've done so much for ourselves. We've invented this, we've invented that. We've made our life so much easier, and we've gotten rid of so much superstition around us. Life is so much better. But on the contrary, I think no, there's still a lot of superstition that we hold there. We are still very, very superstitious people. For example, now, we like to think that we've gotten rid of the concept of gods in modern society. Why? I would, I would think different. I beg to differ that we've gotten rid of those concepts. For example, what was the old concept of gods like in Greco-Roman societies? Gods were symbols used to represent people or an identity that seemed beyond human. And what does it mean to be human? To be human means to be fallible, to be ordinary, to be weak, to make mistakes. And that's what it means to be human. That's what it means. That's still what it means to be human today. But to be a god was to be someone or something that you could look up to and see that wow, this thing is so perfect. This person has achieved so much. Someone you could call a god in Greco-Roman times, someone like Alexander the Great, someone that conquered half of Eurasia by the time he was 30 in 10 years. He had the largest contiguous empire as at that time. I mean, that was a time when there was no, we don't have the, they didn't have the technology that we have today. He just walked and took his army and they marched throughout Asia and Eurasia, and they conquered every single empire then. That was a godly feat for them then. That's something that is beyond human, and that's someone to worship. Those were the ideas of gods then. And if you look forward, let's look forward again and find another example of a god from those times. You look at someone like Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was venerated as a god of those times. Or you look at someone like Augustus Caesar. Those were the gods. If you look at them, if we define gods as someone that goes out and does something extraordinary, someone that redefines what it means to be human. And what did they do when they achieved such feats? What did they do then? Back then, what they did was they conquered these towns or they conquered these empires, then they built statues for themselves, or they built themselves statues, or they built temples for these gods. Maybe they build a temple for Jupiter or they build a temple for Venus and they will dedicate it to that god. But who is actually receiving the praise? Who is actually receiving the all the adulation and adoration and all the worship? It's the man that did that wrought those events, those miracles. It's still, if we look at it and we come to our modern times and we look at it now, don't we still have such kind of people among us? And we say we've gotten rid of superstition. Let's look at examples of celebrities today. Celebrities are just a perfect example of what we would call gods in this time. Look at the way people worship celebrities now. Look at the way people would almost die to be in the presence of their idol. They would just look at the time when Michael Jackson was with us, when people would be swooning, people would be fainting just to see him, just to be around him. It would just cause mass hysteria. Or you want to talk about um, entrepreneurs that have done the impossible, the way people look up to them, the way people worship them and hold them so as gods. But there's something else. There's something else that is not discussed as much. How those individuals became gods, or how they got themselves to those level, which one would say that is above human, or above ordinary, or above weak, to break away those chains, the normality, to break away from normality, to break away from the middle, from the head, and to break above into a godlike status. I wrote something down in my notes this morning about how those individuals became gods. I mean, you don't need to look as far as thousands of years ago. You can look around you and you can look at the idols we have in society today and see how we still have gods among us. And I think this is a very, very peculiar topic to discuss, and it's very germane to discuss, especially in this time we are in now. My definition of a god here is an extremity, is an extreme form of existence in which a living being, or something that exists, an identity that exists, is stretched to its maximum potential. Let's look at entrepreneurs that have achieved what seems to be the impossible. Let's look at someone like Elon Musk, and you would consider him human. Would you consider him human? Or people would consider him, oh, he's just somebody that's been able to work very hard and push boundaries, push limits beyond the usual, where people would give up. I mean, he has been able to get to the extreme to drop off all that would seem as usual human flaws, human characteristics. I also wrote two ways of becoming a god, or two ways in which a flawed human, can ascend into a godlike status, which is one of which is to drop or to ignore all of the human flaws, to ignore basic human nature, to ignore the basic human nature for survival, and to face the other side, which is danger, which is the unknown, which is darkness, to face it head on and squarely and conquer it. That is one way to become a god. And those are we have a lot of people like that we describe as gods. Can say an example of that is Elon Musk. Can say an example of that is Steve Jobs. I mean, Steve Jobs didn't go to college, and he established the number one company in the world today. He established Apple. You can say people like Bill Gates. You can go back in time, you can say someone like Napoleon. You can just look at their lives and look at how they seemed to break out of the norm and ignore everything that was basically, maybe not everything, but most desires that were basically human nature, and embrace those abnormalities and latch onto them. For this, I'm trying to bring out a point that we like to look at these people as, oh, this is an extreme form of man. This is somebody that has gone beyond. But I do think that we have that potential. Each and every one of us has that potential in us. That potential to exceed our human nature. That potential to move beyond and get over our basic desires and step into that godlike status. I mean, it will be different for each and every one of us, but I think it's possible. I think it's attainable. I think we should also strive towards it. I would like to see how far I can take myself just by trying, just by doing. I mean, someone like Elon Musk just got there by trying. You read his stories just by trying and by believing that there is always a way. Hannibal, one of the greatest generals that I revere a lot, he has a quote which I wrote down. Said, "I will either find a way or I will make a way." That's very powerful because you believe that there is something that you yourself will be able to do, and not just leaving it to fate, to the randomness of chance to figure it out. Now, the second way of becoming a god, which I wrote down here, is to embrace human nature. Now, that is very dangerous. That is very dangerous. We have examples of those kind of gods. We have gods of sins, especially in this time and age that we are in right now. Oh, you cannot imagine. We have gods of the most devious kind of sins among us. You have people that encourage us to indulge in the worst kind of sins that we can engage in. You have people that encourage all forms of depravity. And let me begin to get into details. And I think the way society now is structured, in which everybody can see everybody, has only made everything so much easier to fall into those kind of depravities. Has only made it easier. Someone can become a god of gluttony. Let me give a very good example. Someone opens a social media page and he starts eating, and he starts getting followers. He starts getting people attracted to his content, and he starts garnering thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. And people begin to behave and they worship that and they venerate that kind of behavior. That right there is setting the stake. The worship that is being poured onto him, that energy that is being transferred to him, it's it's not just ordinary, and it should not be taken for granted. I mean, you have celebrities that encourage dangerous gangster living and stuff like that, and people begin to see that lifestyle and they get attracted to it and they move towards it and they carry this person up and they worship this person as their number one savior, and they worship this person as this is who they look up to. They are giving the person status. That's very dangerous. That's another way to become a god. That is very dangerous. I think we should just choose who we'd like to become. We should choose. And I, for one, have chosen. I've chosen who I'd like to be. I'll continue with this series tomorrow. I think you should take my words to heart. Think about them. Look at society. Look at society. Look at man. Look at who we have around us. What kind of humans do we have around? Who do you think is around you? What kind of celebrity do you think this is? How did they get to their status of power? Did they embrace their nature or did they reject it? And they ascended to what the higher self or their lower self. And they accepted all the forms of their lower self. That's food for thought. Finally, I'll leave you with this redo that I wrote down this morning. Here goes. A whole part and part whole. What whole is in a part, or part is in whole? That part which isn't whole. Or do we have infinite wholes and infinite parts? I just thought about it, just came off the top of my head. I think it's very useful food for thought. I'll see you soon.